So we're going to be making 1/28ths that you can play with melodies, right? So you can play melodies with. I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to make one for you really quick. Check out my other video on 1/28ths that are not melody playable and that are key selected. That's part 1 of this series. These are a game changer. You really want to start using these. I can't even express. So I'm going to show you a couple really cool tricks that you can do with this, but the main trick to this is you've got to have tune samples, and you've got to tell Ableton, or tell the sampler, what the root key is, right, for each sample. Most of the time when you have samples, they're sorted in some way that they're organized by key, so it's not that big of a deal. So hopefully today will be one of those days. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to my sample library, right, and I'm going to make a 1/28 out of all these somatics sample shots that I've gotten out of all the packs that I've bought from them and whatnot. So we're going to go to vocal chops. I think those are the ones that are tuned. Nope, these are not the ones that are tuned. We've got the tuned ones here. Cool. Okay. Right, so we've got all these 1/28ths, right? They're all tuned. They all sound cool. And there's a lot of them, obviously, and I only want the tuned ones. Right, so I don't even know how many of these I have. Probably over 128. So what I'll do is I'm going to drop this onto an audio track. Right, and the reason is so I can count how many I have, so I know how many banks that I'm going to want for this 1/28. Right. In this case, I can get away with 2 of them, right? So what I'll do is I'll go up to number 1/28. I'll throw that in the first bank. All right, so we've got up to number 1/28. Right, and I'm going to throw it into this template that I'm going to give you guys that has 2 banks. Right, then we go down to 256, or sorry, to 129 to 256, right? And there's some ways to do this pretty quickly. Anyway, so then we go to bank 2, right? We drop this in. Now, unlike the last video, we don't distribute the key. We distribute the sample selector evenly, right? So distribute ranges equally. Right, so just in case you haven't seen the previous video, I'll show you just right now like an example of what's going on. Oops, this one. Right. Right, so I can play, right, and every time I twist this knob, right, it's going to play a different sample for every different position of this knob. The previous one, it would play a different sample every single key that you press, like depending on what the pitch of the key. But this one you can play melodies in, which is kind of nice. Right, so I'm going to show you some badass tricks with that. But in order to make it work out where we can automate the sample selector knob, and that's when it's going to be really cool, is if we automate the sample selector knob into our melody line. Right, so bear with me, we'll get there. Right, but right now we need to tune these really, really quick. So I'll fast forward on the video while I go about this, but let me just show you once really quick. So these are all in C, so this is C3, right? So those are all fine, right? So for C sharp, we would go to our sample. I'm going to hide this for you right now. So we go to our sample and we tell it that this is in C sharp, right? For D, right? So as long as these are not hodgepodge, like where every different sample is a different key, this actually goes pretty quick. There's only 12 keys, right? So anyway, so you get the point. So I'm just going to finish this up right now. So I'm done with that. Everything's in tune. There was a couple samples that weren't quite in tune, or more common was there was like a pitch bendy thing that I sort of had to change the sample start because I plan on using this to go through changing the sample selector very rapidly with rapid notes. So it's only going to work well if it is all immediately in tune for some of the things that I want to use this for. But in general, let's check it out. So right now this has 4 voices that we could use. I'm going to change this to 1 voice. Right, I think it's going to work better for what I want. So I'm just going to grab basically some chords and an arpeggiator. right? So if I go into chords and just grab some chords, any of these chords will work. Let's grab something in minor because minor's cooler, right? And we will go to the top so I don't lose track. Cool. So I don't like that one. So just grab a stack. Cool. So I'm also going to take an arpeggiator. I don't know if I think I've showed you guys this trick, but if you haven't seen it, it's nice to put it on note mode and go down. Right. So this is fine. I mean, it's okay, but it's cooler when you automate the selector knob, right? So now we're going to automate the selector knob. Let's play a different one. Cool, that works. Alright, so again, automate the selector knob. Right, so this is one way to do it. It's kind of random though, so what you'll actually find works a little bit better is if what I like to do is I like to go like, you know, a bar at a time or something, right? And then I'm just mainly doing this, and I'm going to change each of these, and I'm going to make smaller changes inside of them, right? So, right, so. So you basically do a different one for each bar, and then you change all the ones that suck. Right, and then you can do like different ones for the fills or whatever. Right. So the other thing worth doing, which I didn't do, is normalizing the volumes, right? So especially if you're doing this kind of thing, if you normalize the volumes, right, it'll make it more consistent. And then there's other tricks that you can do, like you could like add an envelope to make it more like bell-like with some decay or something like that. Right. So the other thing is, so these have two banks, so I can crossfade between the banks. Right, so I can crossfade between the banks for some easy layering, but I can also automate these crossfades, right? So if I were to like put little markers in here, oops. Right, and then drag these down, right, in different ways, right? So we're crossfading in different intensities between the two sounds that are going on at any given time. Right, so it's not like perfect, you know, and there's a million ways you could do it. You don't have to have it be so many notes, but I just sort of wanted to illustrate some of that. It's nice to just like do stabs or whatever, or even just like pick one timbre. You don't have to be like automating the sample selector knob, but that's one of the techniques I wanted to show you, and it's part of the reason why this is, you know, such a powerful technology to make playable 128s, right? So you know, and you could, the other thing about this down thing is you can like change the melody notes. So cool. Right, and so this selector. I don't really like some of these samples over here, so I just changed them, you know? Cool. So I like that well enough, right? And let's just throw some beat on here. Also, if you want to tune things, sometimes it like kicks and stuff, it's better to go up and then listen. All right, and then you'd set it back down. All right, so. Right, so you get the point. Right, so you get the point. You could put like chords under this, right? So. Cool. So you get the point. Pretty quick to come or to put together pretty cool lines and stuff. And honestly, just for finding good sounds and making playable instruments, right? You know, I could, right, like while this is going. I just realized I have my keyboard. Right, so you get the point. You can even turn up the voices and you can play chords and stuff, right? Right. Let's actually record this so I can. Right, you get the point. So let me just quantize this and a little bit less than 100%. Right, and like I could like put this down an octave so it doesn't clash as much. Cool. So you get the point. Pretty powerful technique. I'm gonna leave. I can't give you this one in particular. Oh, I'll just show you the naming conventions I use. So what I'll do is I'll be like vocal, or you know, probably vox now. Yeah, vox, chops. These are by Somatics. They make good samples. You probably know that already. They're pretty good at the marketing. And then I would call these tuned because they're playable, or I'll call them playable. But I usually call them tuned. If they're tuned, then I know they're playable. And so I have a whole user library of 128s, right? And so I would go ahead and I would throw that into the vocals folder. Bam. It's Vox Chops. Here, in case I say vocals, right? I want to be able to find it when I search. Cool. Cool. I like that well enough. yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So again, just don't forget to normalize the volumes. Don't forget to tune everything. And sometimes things aren't in tune, even though they say they're in tune. So you might have to shift the sample, but make sure everything, the root key is correct. And you know, you can crossfade between the banks. You can automate the sample selector knobs. You know, you could like make little pitch knobs, right? Like you could put this to 12. Oh, I want this one. It'll be easier to hear. So if we go to like 12. Then we can make some consistency. Even if we're like moving around samples, they'll all have that same pitch envelope. They'll all have that same pitch envelope. Cool. Cool. So you get the point. And you can do that with synth shots. You don't just have to do it with vocal shots. You can do it with synth shots. You can do it with bass lines. You can do it with anything that's tuned, right? So if it's not tuned or you're just like drum shots and stuff, look at the other video, part 1 of this series. The next one, I'm going to show you how to make looped 128s for loops, which can be really useful because you put it in a stack of 128 simplers, right? You don't actually use a sampler device, you use a simpler device. But that allows the beat syncing, and then you can quickly tune all your loops and cycle between them and crossfade and all that stuff if that's what you're into. And then I'm going to do another one that is for long samples where you use the sample slicer, right? And then the different pitches would go in for different slices in a sampler, or sorry, in a simpler device, but it's in slice mode for long samples. And then the other one is a new method I've developed, which is a grain 128. And so you can actually get granular on the sampler. And so you can go through all these different 128s that are tuned like this one, right? Ideally, they don't have to be, but it's nice when they are, because then you can play melodies and you can like get granular on it as well. And like for each individual sample, you're like, you know, like sliding through this longer sample. So if you do like sound design, you like stay in a single key, right? And like you just have like a morphing timbre like over like 15 minutes or whatever. You can just swipe through that and like go through that and create timbres or like fine timbres and like move through that, and it'll all be playable, and you can do like granular effects on it too. It's super awesome. So stay tuned. I'm going to make all these things available to you for free. Please like and subscribe. I definitely need the subscribers. I just started. I've got like very few of them right now. And you know, let's get this out there to make music better for everyone. All right. So I'm gonna save all this stuff for you guys. Just the templates. I can't distribute these samples, but make your own, guys. It's really not that hard. Yeah, and I think that's it. Leave questions if you have them down in the comments below. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And my name is Missing Lynx. Peace.